Hey guys, in this problem I'm going to help you with the 2015 number 1 on arrays. So I think everyone read the problem by now. So in this problem, it says write a static method array sum that calculates and returns the sum of the entries in a specified one-dimensional array. So in this case, 1 plus 3 plus 2 plus 7 plus 3 equals 16. Now, they are going to pass the array as a parameter. So remind yourselves to always use our parameters in our answers. So in this case, this is ARR0, and then adding it to ARR1 and so on. And then that's going to equal to sum total or sum. So anytime you are adding something, you're going to want to start off with a int sum variable. Now, one thing to take note is that you're returning an integer. So my rule is write down int sum equals 0, and then remind yourselves to return this sum, because sometimes we forget that. So how do we add elements inside these arrays? So we're going to need a for loop because it's going to have to access everything. So we have for loop, int I equals 0, I is less than. Now this is an example that has a size or length 5. So we want to make sure that we can use this program for any size. So we're going to have to use the dot length method. Then from there, what we're going to do is, remember, sum is just an integer. So we're going to do sum plus equals, and ARR is an array, and every array needs to be specified. So in this case, I have I equals 0, then it increases to 1, 2, and so on. And that's pretty much all you have to do for part A. So that was pretty simple. And now what we have here is some method called array sum that takes an array and then returns the sum. That's important for part B. In part B, it says write a static method row sums that calculates the sum of each of the rows in a given two-dimensional array and then returns these sums in a one-dimensional array. So the return type here is an array. And what we want to do is we want to make sure, just like we did with the sum, that you have something to return. So we have to create a one-dimensional array in order for us to return it. So we're going to start off with int bracket, because it's one-dimensional, and I'll call this, let's say, sums. And we know that, excuse me, I need a new. Int sums, new, int. Now, we know that all arrays take on some sort of length. Well, we're going to add up these rows here. So, in this case, we have to add up the first row, the second row, the third row, the fourth row. So, in order for us to figure out how many rows there are, we're going to use this guy right here, dot length. So that's going to be where we are going to put these sums into. And then we're going to return the sums. Okay, so we have to take the sum of this row and put them into sums 0. We're going to have to take the sum of this row and put them into sums 1 and so on. So I'm going to need a for loop. But from part A, and it'll tell you here somewhere, right there, assume that array sum, which is what we found in part A, works as specified. Now remember, array sum takes an array as its parameter. So I'm going to first show you this for loop. It's an enhanced for loop. And if we do this, let's call it row, because we're using rows. You can call this anything you want, this guy right here. And this is how we're going to go through the two-dimensional array, which is ARR2D. We're going to figure out, okay, so let's do it this way first before I give too much of the answer away. We're going to take this array sum from part A, and he takes a parameter. Now that parameter that he takes is a single, remember that it's a single one-dimensional array. So this guy here is going to go in here. This array sum will add up the entire row, and now we have to place that sum somewhere. So I created this guy here so I can use him. So I'm going to call him sums. And now I kind of need like a counter. I mean, how do I put 0 here for the first row and 1 here for the second row? So I need a counter. So maybe I'll call it, this is probably bad, but I'll just call it I for now. And in order to even use I, I'm going to have to initialize it up here. And then from there, I'm going to, once I put this entire row, the sum of this row right here into 0, I need to increase it. So I'm going to do I++. And that pretty much will put all the sum of the rows into this one-dimensional array, and then you can return it. And just remind yourselves that when you're returning it, the computer knows that you're returning a one-dimensional array, so you don't need brackets here. You don't need those brackets there. Now, once again, the most important part, I think, is going to be this guy here. If you want to access one row at a time from a two-dimensional array, this is how we write it. And so that's part B. I think I'm going to stop this video and then do part C in the next video. Thanks for watching.